there's a really critical part, between the Belarus and the Kaliningrad Oblast of Russia that goes through what is called the Suwalki territory. This is a small territory of Poland and Lithuania that is in between those Russian exclave and Belarus. So we could see some sort of hybrid attack there where it will not be acknowledged that this is Wagner, but at some point, some men with weapons appearing there. And in this situation, it would be very hard for NATO to react upon it because it will take some time to establish who those people are. And I think this is kind of a war of attrition or hybrid attack that Wagner Group might be planning to destabilize Europe and switch attention from the help to Ukraine to other regions in Europe. And this could be the tactic that they might be using.
The Polish Prime Minister says more than 100 Wagner Group troops are moving forwards or towards a thin strip of land between Poland and Lithuania. He warned they could pose as migrants to cross the border. Mateusz Morawiecki said his government had received information that the Wagner mercenaries were in western Belarus, not far from the border. We can now speak to Sergiy Petukhov, former Deputy Minister for the European integration of Ukraine. Good morning to you, Sergei. Thanks for speaking to us. What are your concerns when it comes to these Wagner fighters dangerously close now to the Poland border?
Good morning. Now, Putin is well known for always raising the stakes, and we, unfortunately, are always catching up with his new plans. So it's hard to tell whether what's going on with Wagner is a planned activity or is just a situation that develops on its own. But we've seen the vulnerabilities that has been explored before by the Belarusian president, the vulnerabilities of the European borders and the problem with the migrants that was faced. It is a situation where the thousands of people from Iraq were shipped by the planes to the Belarus and then illegally crossing into the EU, creating a chaos within the eastern border. So something like this might happen again. It also can be used for any kind of provocation or sort of even small-scale military attacks. It can be used to destabilize the political situation in the neighboring EU countries. I think this is something that everybody's watching really closely there. What's going on with the Wagner's activities in the Belarus.
Does the fact that Poland is a NATO member, does that provide some comfort?
Well, it does on one hand, because there's Article 5 of the agreement that says that all the member countries of the NATO agreement will have to come to help of Poland. But remember, it doesn't have to be a sort of a full-scale attack. It could be something different. There's a really critical part, between the Belarus and the Kaliningrad Oblast of Russia that goes through what is called the Suwalki territory. This is a small territory of Poland and Lithuania that is in between those Russian exclave and Belarus. So we could see some sort of hybrid attack there where it will not be acknowledged that this is Wagner, but at some point, some men with weapons appearing there. And in this situation, it would be very hard for NATO to react upon it because it will take some time to establish who those people are. And I think this is kind of a war of attrition or hybrid attack that Wagner Group might be planning to destabilize Europe and switch attention from the help to Ukraine to other regions in Europe. And this could be the tactic that they might be using.
Who's in charge of the Wagner mercenaries now after the coup?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Do you know who is in charge of the Wagner mercenaries now?
That's very hard to tell. So it seems that they have several commanders that are interchangeable. There's the Prigozhin, who is the head of the Wagner, and it was rumored that he might be arrested at some point, and he was proclaimed as a traitor, but Russian president seems to be, at large, and enjoying his life. He was present at the summit between Russia and African country, shaking hands with the African leaders. So I think he is the ultimate commander still. Whoever represents him in Belarus is clearly under his line of command.
Yeah. Just looking sort of far wider now in terms of the stage that the war is at and the offensive by Ukraine, Kyrylo Budanov, the head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine's defense ministry, he said that Ukrainian forces will soon, is the word used there, enter Crimea. What are you hearing on the ground there?
Well, we do see that the counteroffensive that Ukraine launched earlier this spring has been bringing some fruits. Of course, it has not been as quick as it was expected to be. Russians had enough time to prepare for it. But it seems that the strategic use of the all the weapons that we have, which is much less than the Russians had, gave us the opportunity to explore the weaknesses in the defense of the Russians. And we're slowly moving through the defense line. And if we're smart enough and if we get enough military support, when we break through the defense line, then it's much easier to move forward. And given that we might get even more of this, the missiles that can hit further, we can cover all of the military aims in Crimea, and this way making it impossible for Russia to sustain attack along this 1,000 kilometers plus front line. So I think that is what is meant, meaning that the Crimea will stop being an effective military base for Russia and the base for the launching of attacks against Ukraine.
Interesting. And look, we've also heard from Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, overnight. He said he doesn't reject the idea of peace talks on Ukraine. He met African leaders in St. Petersburg, and he said that an African and Chinese initiative, the Chinese have already delivered their peace plan, could serve as a basis for finding peace. What do we read into that? What do you read into that, Sergei?
We now have learned not to listen to what Putin says, but rather seeing what he does. We do know that he failed to respond to the calls from the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And this seems to be the only initiative that has worked before for the grain deal. And unfortunately, Putin decided not to continue to explore this opportunity to bring peace to the region. And this shows that he's raising the stakes. He's been attacking the Ukrainian ports, destroying the grain that was aimed for the developing countries. And in this way, he tries to extort from the West more concessions on the future grain deal if it's possible. In the meanwhile, stopping all sort of negotiations and doing his this kind of flirting with the African countries, trying to buy their favor through some small free shipments of grain that he promised to them.
Well, look, thank you so much for speaking to us, Sergiy Petukhov, former Deputy Minister for European Integration of Ukraine.